the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and on Street Talk, what we deal with the political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside.
Charles Thomas.
We got a lot to cover tonight. So let me just read off a little bit of this, and then we'll go into it. It says, in the past 5 years, the buying power of African Americans topped $1 trillion. It said in the news report, African American demographics and consumer spending trend. The facts found out between 2010 and 2015, African American buying power grew from $995 billion to $1.3 trillion. But we still see poverty. I mean, all is growing, but where's the money going? I mean, where is it?
It's going into blame. It's not being captured and channeled. We don't have no structure. I think the problem is we got everything that we need as a people to become successful, but we don't trust one another as a people because of the damages of slavery and the environment in which we live in has stagnated us as a people.
I agree with much of what Charles said. It is a vestige of slavery. But when you look at African people, particularly West African people, you're looking at a very diverse, very historically diffuse people. Spoke a lot of different languages, had a lot of different physical characteristics that were disparate among that group of people from West Africa. So in other words, we never historically identified ourselves in Africa as African. We might have identified ourselves as a Dogon or Dogon or an Ashanti or a Watusi, Bantu, whatever our tribal affiliation was. But we didn't see each other as somehow part of the same group because we all lived on the same continent and we all had a long tens of thousands of years of civilization is our history. And with that, we had all this diffuse and disparate DNA. Now you come here and immediately your historical memory is wiped away. Your language and your history is denied of you. Everything that you know about yourself from the second or third generation on of people who were enslaved Africans was what the slave master told you. You fast forward to where we are today, we don't have any of that institutional memory that we can organize around. The only thing we can remember is hog maws and chitlins and white Jesus. And We don't have the ability to go to the bank and get capital to invest. We're not able to go to community and buy real estate in order to build up value and in order to hire people and to see our growth. And the main thing that we're lacking is about $18 trillion in economic wealth that we handed the United States of America to build itself in terms of free labor and in intellectual property. Because without the black man, there was no light bulb. Without the black man, there was no cotton gin. Without the black man, there weren't a lot of inventions that we came up with that the slave master took credit for. So you look at all that capital that they took from us for free, the institutional knowledge that they denied us, and it's surprising that we do as well as we do and able to generate $1 trillion in spending power, because that is all based on work. That is all based on determination to make it, swimming upstream against a system that does everything to keep you down. So I don't come down on black people about that. I think it's something that we need to learn from, and we need to recognize as a shortcoming. But I don't get angry and upset at people, because when they take that 10% and they tie that church, they're doing it based on what they know, based on their own feeling about their responsibility to their spiritual self to grow. And they don't know anything about Ma'at. They don't know anything about their African civilizations. They know two invaded, there will be three if you count the Hebrew religion, but they know primarily two religions. They know Christianity and they know Islam. Two invaders' religions. We know nothing of our own innate spirituality, and even the Moors. So some of those were Muslims, but I'm talking about before that. That was all in this part of the millennium, A.D. I'm talking about for tens of thousands of years B.C. We organized great societies with scientific and spiritual accomplishments that can't be replicated today. That's part of what I talked about with the Dogon presentation I did Saturday. Their knowledge of subatomic particles, their knowledge of astrophysics, their knowledge of the universe, their knowledge of how matter's made. You read some of the same stuff. So I'm not so quick to say, yeah, we need to get our stuff together. I'm more quick to say we need to educate ourselves on who we really are.
Right. And I think along with that, to piggyback on what you just said, then we need to come out of this sleep that's been put up on us as a people. Like the identity thing, like I look at commercials, identity theft. To me that's a joke because of what them people done to us as far as our identity. And they're talking, life is not about materialism. The life is about spiritualism. And that's what they took from us because they knew that we were a spiritual people before they hoodwinked us and brought us over here. So in order for them to do what they've done to us, they had to degrade us or diminish us from that spirituality. And they did a hell of a job, but it's our responsibility to go back and reclaim that spirituality as a people.
Couldn't agree with you more. There's an important documentary coming out this fall. Probably going to be out in November, but it may be out as soon as October. It's called 1804, and it's about the Haitian Revolution. Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines and those men and women who helped overthrow a brutal French aristocracy and enslavers of Africans who enslaved Africans to the point that they worked them to death, and they had to bring them over here so fast they didn't bother to separate them by geography and language.
Right.
And the one organizing principle that those Africans had was their spirituality. They had some of the same prayers, incantations, chants, and belief systems, and it gave them that spiritual strength in order to be determined to be free. We're not going to accept this as our condition. We're not going to be bowed down and be slaves because we know who we are. Yeah. And with that, they also had languages and they had a way to communicate. And they could surreptitiously organize this revolution, this rebellion over time until such time as in 1790, I want to say 4, they started the first part of the physical revolution where they actually took up arms and started battling the French. When it was all said and done, they beat the French. They beat the English, they beat the Spanish, and they beat the French again. Yeah. And they created the first independent democratic nation ever established by enslaved peoples. And to this day, the Western world not only does not acknowledge it, they still punish them. France collected reparations until the early 1920s, well after World War I, the equivalent of billions of dollars from this poor, impoverished island, which should be a very wealthy jewel. If people left to their own devices. So you can take what happened in Haiti and you can look at it and say that's the reason why we can't do things here. And it's also the reason why it's so difficult to do those things, because when you do successfully stand up and rebel, you're punished for it. Look what happened to Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, the Black Panthers in Chicago. They went out to Cicero and other white communities and said, we're not your enemy. We ought to be working together. It's an economic fight. You're held down and underserved just like we are. We could do this together as people and not look at each other as different races. FBI came in at 5 in the morning and plugged about 22 bullets into Fred Hampton, who was 19 years old. So
not a threat.
When we look at data like that, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a reason why it happens that way, and it's by design.
Mr. Padgett, you were saying?
Really and truly, Dennis has a good point. Education. And until and unless people know who they are, where they came from, what they're all about, we're not going to be able to do much more than we have done so far. That's basically everything in a nutshell.
Okay, it says the rise of affluent households that help boost African American buying power between 2005 and 2014. The number of African American households with an income of $100,000 or more jumped 83%, from 1.1 million to around 2 million.
Good jobs, good education. We're sending our children to colleges and universities. We're becoming tech savvy. We have the innate ability as thinking, functioning human beings to compete on an individual level. But even within corporations, you see discrimination where it's okay to have in a few blacks, but not too many, particularly black males. You can go to a lot of these corporate suites and see plenty of black women, but black men tend to be ostracized and placed over to the left. So again, none of that surprises me. But we have to look at the reason why the economic deprivation persists to this day.
Like you were saying earlier too, a couple of weeks ago, about a pig pen. You know, a pig in
not a natural environment.
He ain't sloppy.
No,
he don't eat his own slop.
But
when you put him in a condition that he's got to eat slop and eat guts and all that, he's going to eat it to survive.
Same thing with the crabs in the barrel analogy. Why is a crab in the barrel? You talking about why you talking about why a crab? You got the crab in the barrel and somebody get to the top, you pull them back down. Why you in the barrel in the first place? Ask that question.
Who bought the barrel?
Ask that question.
Dining out is one of the areas where African Americans are spending more of their money. So why are we dining out so much?
I think.
I mean, what?
Commercial, man. Advertisement. We've been so brainwashed by white society that we try to mimic what we're trying to fake it till we make it. We're trying to be something that we're not. You know, and we don't support other ethnic groups like we do. We reject black businesses, but we'll go to other ethnic groups and support them. So going back to what Dennis was talking about is that conditioning or that environment that we've been put into, and TV's not helping at all. And the African American churches really is a crime what they're doing to the black community, because they are they launder money out of our community and putting it in another community. That's got to stop. We don't need a lot of churches. If the preachers were telling the truth, you would only need a couple of churches. But everybody wants to be heard and be seen. They got too many. The egos are too big. And it's all about materialism instead of spiritualism.
They got that profit motive.
Yeah, they got the profit motive.
But let's dig into that eating out thing, okay? Who's eating out? Now, if you look at that statistic that you talked about earlier, where there's 200, there are many more African Americans who make six figures now, as opposed to before 2005. That was the point of that, right? Mm-hmm. How much more do they eat out than their economic peers, their white peers who are in that same income bracket, the six-figure, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 household? I would deign to bet it's not any different. It's about the same. Go out to dinner and a movie, take your wife out on the weekend, take your kids out on a birthday, et cetera, et cetera. What they're distorting those numbers with is the poor, because the poor people can't go down the street and go to Myers and go to Kroger's and go to Farmer Jack's and buy fresh produce and vegetables. So what do they eat a lot of? They eat a whole lot of Kentucky Fried Chicken. They eat a whole lot of Murder King. They eat a whole lot of Crackdonald's. They eat a whole lot of this crap that's enfolded in those numbers as dining out. That's not dining, that's existing. And a lot of times, man, when those people eat that food, it's a way to make a dollar stretch. Yeah. I remember reading an article back in the early 2000s. It was in Harper magazine, and they were talking about they didn't differentiate between the poor black and poor other minorities, and poor whites for that matter. They were just talking about the poor. And they said, you look at all these people with high obesity rates, high diabetic rates, high blood pressure rates, high cholesterol rates, just poor health profile, yet they're poor and they're obese. How does this happen? Well, they eat a whole hell of a lot of refined sugar, a whole lot of fat, a whole lot of cholesterol, a whole lot of high density, low density nutrition food. High density in terms of fat and cholesterol and calories, but low in terms of nutritional value. You eat a lot of that. You go out because you can't go to the grocery store and you're trying to make a dollar stretch, you're dining out all the time. So those numbers, again, distort the measure of what's really going on in our community. And we ain't out playing Big Willie, putting on the the guy with a tuxedo walking up serving you. Mm-hmm. Murder King's getting a lot of that dining out money. Right. So let's be fair about this.
And another scientist said when they brought us over here as slaves, they didn't bring our diet with us.
Absolutely not.
And so we had to eat guts to survive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us still eating guts.
Yeah.
Because of the mother raised them up on the guts.
That's one of the things that I simply can't, I don't get, is that, until I was 17, 18, I ate pig, and lots of more things I might have eaten then, but you have to live and you learn, mm-hmm. and I've talked to people, making big money, I've talked to these people, and some of them still are eating this what you shouldn't be eating.
Right. Absolutely. It's culture. It's tradition.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Hey man, I'm almost ashamed to admit it, man. Until I want to say 10, 11 years ago, man, I look forward to going to see my mother on Christmas Eve, not just because I wanted to see my mother, but because she was what they would say, put your foot in that pot.
Yeah.
And man, it would be some greens, some ham hocks, some ham, some chitlins. We was going in, and it was traditional. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, and my cousins, everybody, this is time to celebrate. We gonna put our foot in that pot. Mm-hmm. Cakes and pies, and hey man. And I used to leave out of there bloated, stomach flipping, gas or whatever. I felt so bad. But man, that's running to the doctor while my head hurt. Yeah, man. So to Charles' point, we don't remember eating the good foods that we ate, the plant-based diet that we had. Yeah, we eat meat too, but it wasn't like the focus of the entire meal, and it certainly wasn't deep fried, and it certainly wasn't the guts. Mm-hmm. So ignorance is bliss, man. And if you're put in a situation where that's all you have, and you use some of that good seasoning to actually make that, if you can make some guts taste good, you are cooking some.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Slap your mama's meal.
So good.
You were saying that.
One question there, Dennis. You talk about the eating out.
Right.
What other considerations should we give here? So why so many of our people are eating out? Yes, Have they been taught how to prepare good meals? So they can go home and prepare a meal rather than go McDonald's, Kentucky, etc. I mean,
Well, you're aware of the fact that, for example, in Detroit, until 2-3 years ago, when they built a Whole Foods down there near the Detroit Medical Center, the entire city of Detroit did not have one grocery store that sold fresh produce. You're aware of that, right? No Farmer Jacks, they went out of business. No Kroger's, they were gone, out to the burbs.
Okay.
You could get one out there by St. John's Hospital, but that's right on the border. So you have people who may not have a car, rely on public transportation, or they may have an apartment where they can't afford to unload groceries as they take it out of the car and take it upstairs because they take 1 or 2 bags, somebody come and stealing the rest. I mean, there's real practical considerations to this. So again, the reason why they don't eat fresh food is because A, it ain't there, B, it's not logistically convenient to do it, and C, they just don't have the budget, man. That fast food stuff, that dining out stuff, you can take your children and get a $1 meal.
not anymore.
Oh well, I don't eat that crap, so maybe it's $2. But whatever it is, it's still relatively less expensive than going out buying good food. So if you're a mother, single mother who has no other wherewithal, and she's trying to make ends meet to the end of the month, she takes little Ray and Shaquita out and gives them a Happy Meal, and they're happy, they're full, it tastes good. You're making it ends, and that's counted as dining out. We dine out too much. Like we got white napkins around our and getting a wine list.
Right.
I mean, please, man, that's distorted.
Yeah, it's a difference.
So then you're saying they need to define dining out.
Yeah.
We need to be critical thinkers and readers when we read things like this. We have to ask ourselves, based on other things we've read, where's that number really coming from, and what's the point of that number? Is it to make us feel ashamed and embarrassed, or is it to educate ourselves?
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of black folks out here who hate themselves so much that they can't wait to tell you how much they hate you too. So I always read things like that with a critical eye.
Yeah.
Good.
I think we as a people need to understand that when you open up a business, it's not to make profit. It's that profit is important, but you're creating jobs in your community, and when the more business that you open up, the more jobs you can provide for people, more revenue, and there's a spirit that comes along with a community that's working together that you can't put a price on. And I see it happening in other communities. So we don't have that. I think once we get a taste of that spirit of doing for ourselves as a people, I think it'll catch on like a grass fire in the summer, But we don't have that spirit yet because we give up too quick, I mean, like people like Martin Luther King try to put things in place. Elijah Muhammad tried to put things in place. Malcolm X tried to put things in place and try to tell you the importance of loving yourself as a people, and don't believe what other people have taught you.
That's the thing that it really bugs me because ever since we've been here, we've been fighting against each other.
That's not true. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. You know the story of Black Wall Street. That was built, sustained, and thriving by black folks for black folks, and that's just one example.
Well, wait.
You had cities all over the country that were destroyed. I mean, they literally bombed them from the air, a military operation. Pharmacists, dry cleaners, doctors, lawyers, restaurants, movie theaters, taxi services, all over the country. Everywhere you turn, and they're gone now. That's because all of a sudden we started not caring about it.
We ever since I've been reading about blacks, there's been a lot of blacks fighting against blacks. I mean, because if we was fighting, everybody was fighting together and everything, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now.
So you think Semitic people, Jewish people don't fight against each other, compete against each other?
They fight against each other, but
they'll fight and go to lunch.
Yeah.
Does any so Semitic people can fight against each other and compete against each other and go to lunch. Arab people can fight each other, compete against each other and go to lunch. Asian people can fight each other against each other, compete against each other, and go to lunch. We fight against each other, compete each other, can't go to lunch.
No.
Maybe it's because we can't buy a damn restaurant because we can't get the capital to invest in a restaurant. Maybe it's because we don't have the economic wherewithal to go to lunch together after we get done fighting.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about ever since we've been here, we've been fighting against each other.
It's not true.
That's what.
It's not true. Absolutely not true. How do you build a Black Wall Street fight against each other?
That was in Oklahoma, you know.
Well, they was in Ohio. They was in Michigan. Hey man, you ever heard of Idlewild?
Okay.
You ever see what was in Detroit?
Yes, but okay,
Fighting against each other.
But,
Sabotage. When the white
Now-
man say you got the coldest beer in town, we don't come
Right.
to the, yeah.
Right.
Or when you go to a black establishment, I want a deal.
Right.
Y'all done forgot, man.
right, you know.
Y'all done forgot.
Well, I mean,
Just because it's that way today don't mean
But-
it's always. You said ever since we got here, we've been fighting against each other.
we have.
That's not true.
When Frederick Douglass first tried to escape, two guys right with him, and what they do?
They was enslaved.
They had
man.
already.
They was enslaved.
but
Their mind was,
They
you know,
had already told the man that they was going to escape that night. So I mean, if we had have been, you know, like other different groups, you know, we have our fight, but then hey, our business deals, we come together on our business deals. We wouldn't be at the back of the line now.
Okay, so have any of those other phenotypes had their ability to establish banks sabotaged by the larger society? Have you read your Francis Cress Wessling about why this happens?
But you know, every place where humans live, just about, we are the underdog. So we used to that. We used to that.
That's expected.
That's what it is. So that's just something out there. But coming together as a group of people,
Right.
a
What's
nation,
stopping us from coming together? Yeah.
you know, that's what I'm saying.
Where Bill O'Reilly at? I think he's.
Where
Where Rush Limbaugh at? I think they ready. Y'all chime
But
in.
we
This is real.
do have a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do. Of course we do, man. But y'all act like
we got to overcome ourselves.
y'all act like it's pervasive.
No,
Y'all act like it's been going on since
It
black.
has.
hasn't.
Everybody's eyes is not open to the level that your eyes is open.
It ain't a man. I'm talking. Look, I always say I believe in history because history tells us what happened,
And
right?
a lot of people don't read history.
Oh, I said history tells us what happened.
Right.
It don't matter if you read about it. It don't matter if you know about it. It happened. Just because you ignorant of it don't mean it didn't happen. And the idea that all we've ever done is fight and conflict against each other just ain't true. It's just not true. It's manifestly untrue.
We're not saying we fight. What we're saying, we can't come together.
We got a problem.
I'd say since 1965 to current, we've seen a lack of development within the black community. But what happened in 1965? What happened in 1965?
Well,
man?
we can't go
into segregation, right?
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.